My 2022 Ram Power Wagon recently crossed over 60,000 miles, and considering all that it has been through, I figured today would be as good of a time as any to give you an update on how I still feel about this truck.
Well, hello and welcome back to Motoring Adventures. I'm Preston. I want to give you guys an update on the 2022 Ram Power Wagon, which now has just over 60,000 miles, and I've owned it for about 17 months. I've already done a pros and cons of the Power Wagon, but I wanted to go over how I feel about it now that it's been several months after that. It's a beautiful day. I figured why not give you guys an update on the Power Wagon as I promised in a previous video. Well, let me just start out by giving my overall impressions over owning this for the last 17 months. I'm very satisfied with this truck as a whole. It has been an awesome truck for what I use a truck for. Other people might use a heavy-duty truck such as this for more usual heavy-duty work, towing, hauling heavy loads, spending a lot of time on the highway. That I may do in this truck, but this is more for an overlanding or off-roading type of use for me. The truck has been very reliable. It runs great. I've had no major issues whatsoever. I mean, there's been a few little things that I'm going to get into. I'm going to talk about in my gripes section of this video. I love the way this thing is currently set up, with the way I have it set up, where I have the Lightner Designs bed rack, the roof nest Condor 2 XL rooftop tent, and the decked drawer system. In fact, that was back when I had my M1102 trailer. I use it as an overlanding trailer. I used to load that thing up with totes with bins that had gear in it, and sometimes these bins weren't waterproof, or it's kind of hard to reach in and get them. So I always imagined putting one of these decked drawer systems in there. I'd seen them before, seen them in ads, seen them at truck shops and whatnot, and it just looked really cool. I know a lot of people gripe about it, you lose a lot of bed space, but to me, access to my gear was the key thing, and keeping gear out of the elements, protected, because when I carried stuff back there and I'd drive through a lot of dirt, a lot of dust, and heavy rains, the bins would sometimes pop open, and my stuff would get wet, it would get messy. The trailer itself would bounce a lot, the M1102 trailer, so securing that stuff down was key. Even when I ratchet strapped it and secured everything, sometimes stuff would shift and it would get out of there. So I really wanted to get a deck put into that, but they're not really made to fit that. You gotta kind of finagle it, and the bed on that was pretty shallow, so it kind of does take up pretty much any space you'd have in there for a bed. And then I started toying with the idea of going from a trailer and a vehicle overlanding setup to, why not just have it all in one with a vehicle like the Power Wagon, have all that gear in the bed, ready to go, and not have to hook up, unhook, and worry about having another vehicle with you. So that's what led to me getting this set up this way, and I've been really happy with it. I haven't quite used it as much as I would like to have used it already, but I've really been able to take it out, I think, and test it out, and I'm really happy with it. It just works. Everything's back there, ready to go most of the time. And even when not, it still has ample room in the bed, even with the deck drawers in there. I know to me, it's still enough room for what I need. If I need to haul something bigger, I can take the bins out of the Lightner rack fairly easy. I've had to get stuff like mattresses, bulky items like that, and it'll still fit in the bed with that. Now, if I need to haul like something tall, like chairs or couches, that's probably not going to work. But I don't really have to haul that stuff very often. If I really had to, I could go get like a small U-Haul trailer or something in order to get those and take them where I need to take them. So yeah, overall, just very happy. That's how I'm currently feeling about it as it is with just over 60,000 miles. Since the last review video of the Power Wagon, I've added a few things to it. Not a whole lot, but there are some changes. I recently replaced the battery. I got an AGM interstate battery from Costco to replace the factory one. Another addition is the new tires, the BF Goodrich HD terrain tires that replaced the Mud Terrain KM3s I had. These are 37-inch by 1250 17. I'm running the factory wheels with them. So far they're great. It's been a little bit of an adjustment. These are made for a heavy duty truck. They're load range F. My KM3s were load range D, I believe. And so these I need to air up much higher to get kind of the same ride and wear longevity. So I've been running these more close to between 50. I've been experimenting. I started out doing 40s. I had like a vibration in the steering wheel with the previous tires, and it's something that gotten worse slightly over time. I'm not sure if it was attributed to the tires, but I didn't know what else it could be. I had it aligned. I had, and I would notice it would change as I rotate them. So maybe it was one particular tire that was worn more than the others, but they were wearing unevenly, and that's why I got these tires. They're supposed to wear a little better. They got a harder compound, but they're still made to go off-road and do some serious off-roading. And we tested that out on the previous video pretty well, I think, and they did excellent. They had in some ways more traction than the KM3s. But I was hoping these would remedy that vibration. They still haven't fully gone away, so I've been going back and forth. I did notice one of the front tires didn't have weights on the inside of the wheel, so I took it back to Discount Tire. I got these at Discount Tire, and they did say it was off, and they added weights to them, but they said with these sort of tires and the size and everything, you're probably not going to fully get rid of. They're just extremely hard to get fully balanced. Hold on, there's a plane. I know, it looks like I'm not in the city here, but we're actually not far from the airport. But anyway, so it didn't fully get rid of the vibration, but it is much improved. I notice it only happens at a certain mile per hour. Now it's like, it used to be between 55 and 67. Now it's more like just between 60 and 65, and it's not as pronounced. So I am more happy with it. I'm not really sure it's the tires. I really think there's something, it could be one of the wheels, and that could be why when I rotate them, I should probably try experimenting and rotate them just to do its like initial rotation and see if that changes it at all. I've had it realigned since getting these tires just to make sure the alignment's all on and that they wear evenly. They did tell me the tie rod ends on the front are probably got about 10 to 15,000 miles left on them. Not sure if that could cause the vibration, but we'll see. Maybe it's just the nature of having 37. My other two Power Wagons never did that, but they also didn't have 37-inch tires. I had 35s on the 2020 Power Wagon, and I moved up to 34s on the Tradesman one, the 2014. I also recently had the parking brake adjusted. You had to push it all the way down to the floor to get it to barely catch. So, and lastly, I recently trimmed. If you saw the last video, this thing took quite a beating on that last obstacle. The front bumper was bent enough so that the front tire was touching it, so I recently just trimmed that up. What's great about these trucks is, even though they get hit more, and I don't think the bumper is as strong as, say, on a Jeep with their steel bumper group, you can still, it's still flexible enough and strong enough that you don't have any, I didn't have any like permanent or major damage that hindered it. I did have to trim the bumper, and that was fairly easy. I used an angle grinder, some spray paint, and the thing is, to me, unless you really look closely at it, it doesn't really stand out as major damage. So, and the rock rails did great on the last trip. I know full frame mounted rock rails would be the best thing to have, and I may do that eventually, to protect the bed because the bed's been taking a beating. But these, if I didn't have these on here on that last rock hit, I don't even want to know what this cab would look like. It would have dented the cab. The door may not even open properly. It may have interfered with that, and that stuff is fine. So again, that just enhances how I feel about the truck. I'm able to take it off-roading, do some pretty serious off-roading, you know, not something that a short wheelbase vehicle like a Wrangler could do that's lifted and on the same size tires, but it does enough for me to get my off-roading fix, but still be a good travel vehicle, a good overlanding vehicle. I'm breaking this down in a couple sections here. I'm going to first go over my praises of the vehicle, and then I've got my gripes. Just kind of break it down into the things I've really liked about it and the things that kind of do bug me. But overall, like I said, truck's been great. The first praise on this is the gas mileage has actually been slowly improving from when I first got it. In the beginning, I saw between 8.5 to 9.5 miles per gallon. I know, really sad. Part of that is I moved up to 37-inch tires, but I did not recalibrate the speedometer. I've since done that, added the AEV ProCal. So now that the miles per gallon is accurate, or at least very close to accurate in the dash. So, but I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the increase in long distance trips I've taken, or maybe it's the tires and the tire pressure, but now I'm averaging somewhere between 10.5 to 12.5 miles per gallon, depending on if I'm more in town or more driving long distance. So, I mean, better gas mileage is always a good thing. It's not really known for its gas mileage, and 12.5 is still abysmal gas mileage in the grand scheme of things, but considering all the weight and all the gear I'm carrying, the amount of power this has, the size tires, the fact that I didn't re-gear, I mean, it has 410 gears. I think that's actually pretty good, all things considered. My second praise is that despite everything that this truck has been through, all the road trips, the towing, the off-roading, pretty harsh off-roading, camping, this thing still drives and feels pretty much like the day I bought it. And I bought it used, so. And I've owned these before from when they were brand new. The Power Wagon is just so tough. It just doesn't, it's not fazed by hardly anything. And that shows, even when you drive, even when you hit it on rocks, you hit a large pothole or something with it, it doesn't care. It's just, it's like so stout. And that's just what I love about the Ram Power Wagon. I think I've mentioned this a little bit. The durability off-road continues to impress me. Like, I know this thing is off-road capable. Owned them for years, owned different Power Wagons and tested them out. No, they're not as capable as smaller vehicles for fitting into tighter areas and probably doing things like trails that have a lot of switchbacks. Like, I'd really like to run Black Bear Pass someday. And I'm probably not gonna be able to do that in this. Although some people have taken this down Black Bear Pass, although pretty hair raising. I mean, your tire would be hanging off the edge or half off the trail most of the time. But it just impresses me. The solid axles, the sway bar disconnect, the lockers, all that just makes this thing, it feels like just a giant Jeep Rubicon. It really does. I mean, the way it drives, with the suspension and steering it has, and when you get big tires on it, it almost, when I moved up to 37s, it felt like I added a 2-inch lift kit to it. I mean, I pretty much did, going from 34s to 37s. It just continues to impress me off-road. Love it. It does seem to ride, another praise is that it does seem to ride a little smoother and more like a brand new truck now that I've got these HD terrains on here. I don't know what it is. I do run higher pressure, so it does give it a slight, more stiffness to the ride, but it feels better. I don't know if that's because those tires seem to be a little bit skinnier than the KM3s. I will say the KM3s did look and probably performed more aggressively just from the way they're more rounded, and the amount of tread on the sidewalls on those compared to these. These don't look as aggressive as those, but they are still aggressive and still a large off-road tire, but it's driving more like it has the original stock Duratrax now that I have these than when I had the KM3s. So I mean, that's definitely a plus. And just another praise is that I've reiterated this a lot. It's just an excellent platform for overlanding, because the main aspect of overlanding is the journey, right? And you spend a lot of time in the vehicle when you're on a journey, so the room, the comfort, the size, all that just enhances the experience versus a smaller vehicle. I had no problem in the Jeep Wrangler in terms of comfort, even though my wife and girls would say otherwise, especially on a long road trip. But this is nicer to ride in. It's plushier, roomier, you got elbow room, your legs can stretch out, and that helps with fatigue and just overall aches and body aches and pains when you're on a very long trip. And also helps off-road when you're bouncing and moving. You have room to kind of bounce around without actually, running into anything. So that's definitely a plus and a praise I have for the Ram Power Wagon. Okay, on to my gripes of the 2022 Ram Power Wagon. After owning it for 17 months and 60,000 miles, or 34,000 miles, it still has that shimmy in the steering wheel, and I can't seem to fully get rid of it. Part of that might just be the nature of owning solid axle vehicle as large as this, with as large tires as this, and no suspension mods whatsoever. But it's just annoying, and it makes me think there's some deep down thing that could be done. My other two Power Wagons didn't have that shimmy, or actually I take that back. I think my 2014 did have some sort of vibration in it. I thought it was the tires. It had Goodyear Wrangler MTRs, and it didn't happen all the time either, but I don't know. That just has to be a gripe, but it's part of the nature of it. But the benefits of having this sort of hardware in this vehicle is also pretty tremendous. And something that's really bugged me lately is the catalytic converter. 2 months ago, when I got back from a road trip to Virginia, I started getting a metallic noise coming from underneath the vehicle. It sounded like a spray can or rattle can, with something in it. It would happen when you would be driving between 0 and 30 miles an hour. When you give it a certain amount of gas, doesn't always do it, but at a certain RPM, kind of like a resonating noise, only happens at a certain RPM. But I had a shop look at it. They determined it was the catalytic converter, and that should still be covered under a federal emissions warranty that goes up to 80,000 miles. They said to take it to the dealer and have it replaced for free. And it's just annoying as can be, and I hate going to the dealership. I called the dealer and they said they'll want 2 days just to look at it, make sure that's what's wrong, and they're gonna have to order the part, probably hang on to the truck during that time. I don't have time to deal with that right now, but I really need to get that fixed. Got a trip to Big Bend National Park planned here in a little less than a week, so definitely no time to get that fixed. I'm just gonna have to deal with it during that trip. But fortunately, you don't really hear it on the highway very much, so it's not gonna be annoying during that, but maybe on low speed, slower speed, it's just annoying to me, and just something to deal with. I don't know if it's something internally. It's where where the two different pipes, there's 2 cats, and they go into one pipe that goes to the back, and it's where those 2 pipes make a Y that it makes the rattling sound.
A few moments later.
I've been able to get underneath there with a pry bar and kind of, I tried to space it out a little, because it seems like they're just touching each other very little, but that's enough to cause this annoying noise. But so that's been one of my main gripes of it here recently. Another gripe is it occasionally has the ticking when you start it up, especially on a cold start some mornings. I mean, this is the whole Hemi tick issue, right? Where you hear that. As long as it doesn't last over 10 seconds or something after starting, you should be fine. Oil should be circulating, but it is annoying. I mean, it sounds, that combined with the catalytic converter noise. It can sound like just a bunch of tools, a bunch of metal bolts inside a metal can, just, but I don't know. It's just kind of the nature of it. I mean, I've had other V8 engine vehicles that were much quieter, much smoother than this. I think even my Ram Rebel was a lot smoother, less noisy, but part of it is just the nature of it. Another gripe is when it's loaded down. I mean, it's always pretty loaded down. I got roughly 600 pounds on the bed at any given moment with the rack and the tent and the deck system. But when I was towing a U-Haul 6x12 foot enclosed trailer last summer, and we'd get on the highway, we were driving from Arizona to Texas, you'd experience some sway above 65 miles per hour. And sometimes it would get to the point where it felt kind of dangerous. And a lot of that stretch is very high speed limits, 75 to 80 miles per hour, but we were not able to go anywhere near that. Had to kind of keep it under 65 to prevent that swaying. But that's a little annoying. I've heard that getting either airbags or there's this track bar made by Thurin that's supposed to realign the geometry underneath there from the factory track bar, which is, I heard, is like the same one that's used on non-Power Wagon 2500s. So I mean, when you lift, does sit a lot higher, so maybe they didn't accommodate for that or whatnot. Definitely want to remedy that at some point. I like to be able to, this thing is fully capable of going 80 plus miles an hour on the highway easily, even with the 37s. So definitely want to remedy that and take advantage of this thing's power and speed. My last little gripe is just the fact that it does sag in the back once you load it down with a lot of weight. And since I'm running weight in all the time, it almost always looks, a lot of people might like that. It gets rid of that factory rake where the tail end sticks up, but I think that's meant to compensate for when you have a heavy load. But like I said, some people say airbags or different springs. It's not a big issue with me, but I don't want to lose a lot of ground clearance when off-roading, so I may want to address that at some point. I think at some point, some sort of suspension modification will be in order, but as for now, the factory suspension has been great. It has ample height to clear minor rocks and obstacles and the types of trails I like to do in it. And even some of the tougher ones. This thing is, like I said, incredible off-road. And that leads me into what are my future plans for the Power Wagon? Like I said, suspension. At some point, suspension, but not really looking for that near term. Near term, I would like to get a different set of wheels. In particular, I want to get the AEV Catla wheels, which have 27 millimeters of offset and 5.8 inches of back spacing. That'll space the wheels out, the tires out a little bit, prevent it from rubbing. I still get a little bit of rubbing against the lower control arm and the inside of the driver's side tire. Although I did that for over 30,000 miles with the KM3s, it's still not ideal. It is starting to put some wear on the lower control arm bolt, and it'll have a different stance. It'll probably handle a little better, and those are they look great, and they're made for off-roading. They have like a recessed valve stem, which is nice. And then, like I said, the Thurin track bar, I want to get that to help prevent the sway. And finally, this thing is overdue for diff fluid, transfer case fluid, and transmission fluid change. So definitely need to be addressing those. I mean, it has 60,000. They usually recommend like 30,000 miles, but haven't gotten around to it on this. I did all those, well, except the transmission on the Rubicon 392 I own. So not sure how different that'll be on this. I've never performed those on the Ram Power Wagon. I've never performed diff fluid or transfer case fluid changes on the Power Wagon before. I never owned my previous ones long, but I mean, I owned the first one, I think up to like 40-something thousand, or maybe it was 30-something, but I didn't feel the need to change it in that. But I'll definitely want to get to it with this. I think the diff fluids have a reusable gasket. It'd be very nice if they did, because that'd make cleaning it and reinstalling it much easier. But you got to take the diff cover off to change the fluid and clean it out. So that's something I definitely need to do. Well, guys, that's all I have for the update on the 2022 Ram Power Wagon. What do you guys think I should do to the Power Wagon? Should I lift it up? Should I get it on 40s? Or is it fine the way it is? Should I upgrade my overlanding setup eventually? Move up to some sort of pop-up camper in the back? Chime in the comments down below, and as always, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next adventure. Take care.